Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Cycle 5858. I am Amish Cycle. Foreign news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please let's go to the headlines.
On this Tuesday night, the final seconds before the LaGuardia crash, what investigators reveal about staffing and technology.
We rarely investigate a major accident where it was one failure.
And how the two pilots who died are being remembered as heroes. Escalating threat, the signs Israel is set to invade Lebanon again. Newfoundland and Labrador's March Madness.
Spring is canceled.
Whether there's any relief on the way. Plus, the unusual suspect, how this quadruple amputee cornholing champion is now accused of murder. Joining us, airport in some that may have contributed to the collision between an Air Canada flight and an airport fire truck on Sunday night. Two pilots were killed and dozens of passengers were injured. The NTSB findings, which are preliminary, point to an overlapping series of failures. One of them involves the fire truck, which had been cleared to cross the runway just before the plane touched down. The NTSB says that truck did not have a transponder, as they do at other airports, and that would have triggered a warning.
Controllers should have all the information and the tools to do their job. All the information they need, whether that's aircraft or vehicles moving on the airport, in taxiways, on runways, they should have all the
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Rani Samtani. At this hour, the U.S. prepares to send more troops to the Middle East as President Donald Trump touts progress in negotiations to end the war. But uncertainty remains as Iranian officials continue to deny that talks are taking place. Oil prices are easing on hopes for a diplomatic breakthrough as countries around the world continue to reel from disrupted energy supplies. The Philippines among those hit. Manila says it's now seeking U.S. waivers for sanctioned oil after declaring a national energy emergency to deal with the fallout from the conflict. The U.S. was reportedly preparing to scale up operations against Iran if alleged indirect talks to end the war yield no.
African news. The news. Chad has begun an urgent relocation of refugees from the border with Sudan amid rising insecurity. The Chadian President Mohamed Idris Deby had ordered an immediate evacuation in Enedi East Province over the weekend, with the government targeting to relocate at least 2,300 refugees, mostly women and children. Deby had directed the military to deploy across the border, signaling retaliatory action after a recent drone attack killed at least 17 people. The Chadian government said last week that it was going to deploy military across the border to potentially counter recent attack on the Sudan side, threatening further infiltration into Sudan if attacks persist. Hundreds of thousands of Sudanese refugees have poured across the border into Chad since the conflict began. Chad closed its border for a period shortly after Sudan plunged into chaos in April 2023 when the military went a tete-a-tete with the RSF rebels.
Ghana and the European Union held a defense pact signed on Tuesday as critical to the security of West Africa and the Sahel region. Under the agreement, Ghana's military will receive surveillance equipment, boats and anti-drone guns to boost border security.
The United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, Norway, and others have signed this partnership with the EU, and Ghana is the first African country to join them. This demonstrates the strengthening collaboration between Ghana and the European Union. in tackling evolving security challenges, especially in our sub-region and across the Sahel.
Ghana's National Security Coordinator Osman Abdul Razak said the partnership comes at a time of evolving threats at both national and regional levels. Islamist insurgents have targeted coastal West African states recently.
This comes at a time when the complexity of national and regional security requires a review of strategic alliances and retooling of our state security and intelligence agencies, such that we can cooperate in unique paradigm shifts to be able to facilitate the stability of the state and the sub-region.
Ghana shares a border with Burkina Faso, which, combined with other countries in the Sahel, accounted for nearly half of all terrorism-related deaths in 2025.
In Kenya, hundreds of fuel retailers are running short of supplies due to the current war in the Middle East, according to sector representatives. The chairman of the Petroleum Outlets Association of Kenya, Martin Chomba, told Reuters that about 20% of the country's independent fuel dealers were affected. Kenya obtains all its supplies from the Middle East through government-facilitated deals with Gulf producers and refiners. On March 14th, the state-run sector regulator froze prices for petroleum products despite the spike in oil costs globally. Kenyan fuel retailers said they are pressuring authorities.
This is Sky News, the headlines. Seeking a ceasefire, US reportedly sends a 15-point plan to Iran to end the war.
They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. It was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money.
Israel announces plans to seize a tenth of Lebanese territory, destroying bridges on the ground it wants to occupy. And betting big on the oil markets, we reveal how some are profiting from the war in Iran. Also ahead, good news for pet owners as a price cap on vet prescriptions is announced. Hello. The US has reportedly sent Iran a 15-point plan aimed at ending the war and is seeking a month-long ceasefire. But President Trump has also approved the deployment of more than 1,000 extra troops to the Middle East while still insisting the war is won. Iran says nothing has changed.
This is DW News, and here are top stories. US media reports say Washington has given Iran a 15-point plan to end the war. The plan, sent via Pakistan, is set to require Iran to end its nuclear enrichment program and reopen Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, reports elsewhere claim the United States is planning to send troops from the 82nd Airborne Division to the Middle East. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has said his country will occupy southern Lebanon up to the Litani River to create what he called a defensive buffer zone. The area amounts to nearly a tenth of Lebanon. Katz said the Israeli army would destroy homes in Lebanese villages in order to rid the area of Hezbollah militants. NASA says it's cancelling plans to deploy a space station in lunar orbit and will instead construct a $20 billion base on the moon's surface. The US Space Agency's new chief, Jared Isaacman, said it should take 7 years to build. NASA aims to establish a long-term presence on the moon, paving the way for eventual missions to Mars. Gateway in its current form and focusing.
Each step, each peak,
Here's I watched. These are our main stories. Donald Trump says Iranian leaders are talking sense as he insists Iran wants an end to the war. The US president said negotiations with the top Iranian still be named. I'm moving closer. Ceasefire deal. Tehran continues to deny there are any talks at all. The New Mexico jury finds Meta $375 million, finding the tech giant misled consumers. The jury agreed with allegations that the company took advantage of vulnerabilities, experience of children, and hid information about sexual exploitation on its social media platforms. Meta says it will appeal the decision. And Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen wins parliamentary elections, but without securing a majority. Her Social Democrats suffered their weakest showing in more than 120 years, with the Left Bloc taking 84 seats in the 179-seat parliament. The Right Alliance taking 77, making the centrist party of Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen the kingmaker. Welcome back.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, the breaking news, what we have now learned tonight about that horrific and deadly crash between a passenger jet and a fire truck at LaGuardia Airport. What authorities are now saying that fire truck did not have. And after being told it could cross the runway, how many seconds before the collision was the fire truck then told to stop? And what we're now learning tonight about the two pilots and the flight attendant found on the runway ejected from the plane, still strapped into her jump seat. Also developing tonight, millions of Americans waiting some up to 6 hours in TSA security lines. Some passengers returning today after missing their flights yesterday. Tonight, our correspondent asking lawmakers on the Hill, is it fair that the ICE agents sent into these airports are getting paid, but the TSA security officers are not? Tonight, the war in Iran. President Trump says talks with Iran have started, but the Pentagon is now ordering up to 1,500 soldiers from the 82nd Airborne to the Middle East now. Also late today, the president at the White House now saying Iran has sent a present. Tonight, the wife on the stand, her husband, a doctor, charged with attempted murder, accused of trying to push his wife off the cliff on a hiking trail, and what she testified that he said to her as he came at her with a syringe. The breaking headline just in tonight, the jury's decision now at a major civil trial involving Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, involving child safety. Tonight, the American citizen freed by the Taliban after more than a year in prison. The massive blast and fire at an oil refinery in Texas. The driver charged after plowing into a crowd. Multiple people rushed to the hospital. Tonight, facing DUI charges. Take a close look at this tonight. There's something on that shelf of stuffed animals that isn't quite what it seems. Also tonight here, Trader Joe's issuing a massive recall tonight involving frozen food, 43 states. And major news this evening involving Celine Dion.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with
Fox News alert: the commander of the 82nd Airborne Division has just been ordered to report to the Middle East. The president's aiming to secure the strait and maybe take Karg Island, Iran's crown jewel. The 82nd is a light infantry parachute assault unit, usually the tip of the spear, and can deploy anywhere in the world in less than 18 hours. Central Command has already bombed a ton of targets on Karg Island. You'd expect the paratroopers to drop in at night, secure airfields, do a quick repair job on the strip, and pave the way for the Air Force and Marines to deliver more men, armor, and gear. It's risky, but once you control that island, you control Iran's economic lifeline. All this as more elements of U.S. Special Forces move into the Gulf. A recent surge in C-17 flights into the region indicate a light ground strike force could take action imminently. This wouldn't be a ground war. These units are designed for precision, speed, and impact. They bring together elite elements from the SEALs, Rangers, and Delta. Their job? Execute the most dangerous and sophisticated missions in the world. like dismantling networks and eliminating high-value targets. These special operators do it with minimal footprint and maximum effect. If there's a decisive blow to strike, these are the men to do it. Here's Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg.
I'm a big believer in putting boots on the ground, not necessarily into Iran, but taking Karg Island and also taking the Strait of Hormuz. Like we kind of need to do it the way the Romans used to do it.
As this elite task force gets into position, what's left of the Iranian military is being crippled. We've achieved air supremacy, so our B-2s are refueling mid-flight and continuing to drop heavy ordnance. And we're getting help from the British.
B-52 bombers now launching strikes from RAF Fairford in Britain with a full complement of 24 2,000-pound satellite-guided penetrator bombs. Those normally need to be dropped 5 to 15 miles from the target.
All this is happening as we enter day 2 of the negotiations with the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament. The regime's now come under pressure from its last 2 allies. The Chinese and the Russians are telling Tehran to lay off the strait and cut a deal before Trump seizes the oil. But even though the United States is in peace talks with the Iranians, both sides still letting it fly.
You can see first responders here that are at the scene of a ballistic missile impact in Tel Aviv. The side of this apartment building totally sheared off as the first responders are working to remove rubble and debris from this area. Multiple people were injured during the last Iranian ballistic missile barrage, and a significant amount of destruction was caused to the street, cars on the street.
The US President Donald Trump has talked up the prospect of peace and a return to oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz after claiming that Iran was willing to engage in talks to end the war. After giving the regime in Tehran an ultimatum on oil supplies, President Trump backed down at the 11th hour, claiming that very good and productive conversations were taking place. Markets rallied after his remarks and the price of oil dipped, despite Iran denying the talks were taking place at all. We'll have the latest on what the Australian government's doing to shore up fuel supplies at home in just a moment. But we begin tonight's coverage with Catherine Diss in the Middle East.
An unbelievable rescue. Red Crescent workers find a man completely buried in the rubble of a building in Tehran. Somehow, he's still alive. But the human toll of US-Israeli airstrikes is becoming starker on the ground.
We are looking for him, and we don't know if he's alive or not. Maybe he's dead or I don't know where he is.
Oh, that came out good.
Taking a short detour from the war, Donald Trump visited Elvis Presley's Graceland.
You never know, these are hard to say.
He earlier claimed he'd been in touch with someone senior in the Iranian regime for talks and announced a 5-day reprieve for Tehran to completely reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face attacks on its power plants.
They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too.
On this Tuesday night, the final seconds before the LaGuardia crash, what investigators reveal about staffing and technology.
We rarely, if ever, investigate a major accident where it was one failure.
And how the 2 pilots who died are being remembered as heroes. Escalating threat, the signs Israel is set to invade Lebanon again. Newfoundland and Labrador's March Madness.
Spring is canceled.
Whether there's any relief on the way. Plus, the unusual suspect, how this quadruple amputee cornholing champion is now accused of murder.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Investigators at LaGuardia Airport in New York have revealed some of the failures that may have contributed to the collision between an Air Canada flight and an airport fire truck on Sunday night. 2 pilots were killed and dozens of passengers were injured. The NTSB findings, which are preliminary, point to an overlapping series of failures. One of them involves the fire truck, which had been cleared to cross the runway just before the plane touched down. The NTSB says that truck did not have a transponder, as they do at other airports, and that would have triggered a warning.
Controllers should have all the information and the tools to do their job. all the information they need, whether that's aircraft or vehicles moving on the airport, in taxiways, on runways. They should have all the information. This is 2026.
We now.
Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I hope you will come again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.